Hi guys, this is MJ of Typify, and in today's video, I'm going to do a reaction to Love Who's video on the 12 Rules of Life for INFPs. Quick backstory, I actually really got super excited when I saw Love Who make a video about the types, and I was telling my INTJ friend about the book just recently because I finished reading the book a few months ago, and I thought that wow, this is genius. And for those of you who may not know, the 12 Rules of Life is actually a reference to Jordan Peterson's book. So go check that out if you want to. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to Love Who's YouTube channel and also follow Nathan at Nathan J Glass on Instagram. I'll put his links on my description down below. So yeah, let's get right to the video.
These rules are a combination of advice that I'd give INFPs, but also things that you can learn from them, i.e., rules that INFPs would benefit from and advocate. So it's a mixture of both. Number 1. Leverage the outsider's perspective. The extent to which INFPs find themselves in this role of outsider is probably overstated, mainly because they often have exceptional people skills, so can get along with almost anyone. However, it's still
Okay, first point. I think a lot of people might already be shocked by his statement, but it's actually true. A developing, a developed, or a healthy INFP is actually really good relating with other people. And I think this is something that I can say so myself now that I'm older. I wasn't like this when I was growing up, and for the most part of my life, I was very heavily stereotypically INFP. But eventually, as I became more comfortable with myself, you'll be surprised, INFPs, that there will be a lot of people who will actually appreciate your candor and your awkwardness and will even find it endearing. Again, assuming that you're actually healthy and are trying to improve as a person.
an archetypical position that they will find themselves in and a problem they will encounter throughout their lives. For some INFPs, it can feel like a perpetual state of being. Most areas in life are standardized and systematic, which doesn't suit INFPs well. However, when you feel out of place in a situation, it gives you a fascinating vantage point on the people and the situation itself. A lot of INFP writers, artists, and creators seem to be observers of society and humanity, almost like they're not actually engaged in it.
Oh my god. Okay, that's so funny. That's actually my bio and on almost all of my social media. I'm a casual observer of humanity, so it's just so funny that he mentioned that.
So, it's important to see your potential misfit status as an opportunity. Number 2. Create things. Any individualistic person should consider creating things. The first reason is simply because you'll be offering people a unique perspective through the things you make. You never know when that interpretation, perspective, or outlook is going to be valuable to the person consuming it. The second reason is that it's healthy for intuitive types to take something from an idea into reality, from the abstract to the concrete, to manifest an individual vision in the world. Pulling something from the secretive confines of your own imagination into the tangible realm will feel very rewarding, even if it's only you who sees the things you make. The third reason is that INFPs can often feel misunderstood by people. And as I've said before, there's a remarkable correlation between feeling misunderstood and never actually telling people enough to be understood by them. Creating things.
Okay, so that's just half of what the second rule is, but a part of it is true, a part of it I don't exactly agree with. Yes, there's a stereotypical statement that surrounds INFP, which is that we feel misunderstood. It's not really so much how we feel, it's just that the INFP's primary goal and pursuit is to be accepted. We don't really need to be understood. We want to be accepted. I don't think that any person would be fully understood by anyone, let alone FI DOMs or FI OX. There's a lot of complexities within our inner world, within ourselves that are, we kind of really just accept that people won't really truly understand them. But it's not really so much about that, but really to be accepted for who we are as people. So I guess relating to creating things, I would like to see more of what he's gonna say about this. But that's my comment for the other point.
be that writing, music, art, videos, in video games, your personal fashion, the language that you use conversationally. It can be really subtle things. Will help you take these amorphous and intangible emotions and get them exorcised out, and very often will also help you organize them in a more linear way as well. Certain types often relate to making more sense in writing than they do verbally in real time. I think for the same reasons. When it's a thought or feeling that you have inside you, it's abstract and intuitive. It doesn't have to be verbal, for example. But when you concretize and crystallize it, in doing so, you force yourself to make those things more understandable, relatable, digestible to yourself as much as other people.
Okay, going back to his latter points, art is an extension of a person's identity, a person of who we are. So it's actually right that he's encouraging INFPs to continue creating. For me, word of advice, just do the thing. It's important for INFPs to create, and you don't have to be a stereotypical artist or to actually do art, music, or writing as a full time job. But you actually have to have some kind of outlet to your creativity. Otherwise, you'll feel dead and dry and almost feel like there's something in you that's not being exercised or expressed to the world. And you have to do this for yourself, not necessarily for other people or for profit exclusively, because I know that INFPs despise the idea of doing something for profit, but that's just one of the things that we need to do to survive and for us to actually have a validation and even a motivation to keep doing what we do. When people see and appreciate our work, and sometimes that's equivalent to money, which is actually good, right? So you might miss out, INFPs, touching the lives of many people through your work if you don't put it out there. And this is something that I struggled with myself. But now I'm slowly trying to put out my work, even just for the sake of, even though not with the intention of selling. I put my writings out there, I put my memes out there, my collages out there, my art. You can actually go check it out at MBTI Advice. You can see my artwork there. And that's the most important thing. Just put your work out into the world for them to see. Not unless those things are supremely private. But don't just do art for art's sake, and don't just do your art for yours to see. Many people might and might benefit from this and might enjoy the work that you do. So okay, let's move on to his
Number 3.
third point.
Don't wait for the perfect moment. There are certainly bad or wrong moments to take action in life, but there are rarely, if ever, perfect moments. So waiting for those is dangerous. This is applicable to INFPs because they typically don't take an extremely forceful and aggressive approach to life. They prefer instead to let life come to them, so to speak. So when they need to make big changes, sometimes they can struggle to pull the trigger and burst into action. Inertia is something that can plague them if they're not careful. So, if you're an INFP, sometimes you have to leap before you feel ready. Take action, even though it might not seem like the opportune moment. If something isn't unfolding organically for you, then it's okay to force the issue and push for things.
Okay, so going back to what he said, don't wait for the perfect moment. And this is something that I am trying to apply in my day to day life, which is something I struggled with for the longest time. I advise other people, the people I coach, my friends, my students, the same thing. And it's something I can relate with. Do the thing and the feelings will follow. Sometimes you don't have to wait for the feeling to come in for you to do the work. Just do it. Just do it. And you'll be surprised to see that that has been the perfect moment all this time. So just do the work and let your feelings come afterwards. Consistency is key. Even if you suck at it, it's better than you're doing it than not doing it at all. Okay, moving on to this fourth rule.
Number 4. Follow your heart. Unless your heart is being an idiot. There is a place for ruthless pragmatism from time to time. Cold, dispassionate analysis, followed by detached decision making, is sometimes required. Whether that is cutting someone out of your life, leaving a job, or taking on a job that you might not enjoy because it's more prudent, and so on. These are times where emotional detachment can be preferable. Your TE is there to serve your FI, so use it.
Okay, yes, follow your heart unless it's being stupid, right? I tell this to a lot of feelers in general, but INFPs in particular are prone to Stockholm syndrome, feeling bad for bad people, or being too understanding and accepting to the point where you become a doormat, you become in an abusive relationship, friendship, or in a toxic work life situation. Just cut your losses and move on. If it's robbing you of peace and joy and making your life more miserable just to care for the wrong people, the wrong places, then listen to logic, listen to reason instead of just following your heart, because sometimes the heart lies. So don't follow it unless it makes sense to follow it. Okay, moving on to the fifth point.
Number 5. Structure, organize, and systematize your life. When you think of an INFP's lower functions, they are SI and TE. You could conceptualize a healthy type as one who integrates those functions. So for INFPs, that would mean emulating ESTJs in certain ways. This isn't going to be a sustainable way for them to exist, so they will need to dip into this ESTJ mode, is to focus on things that once done don't need to be revisited. These things include structuring your life in the right way, figuring out efficient ways to get tasks done, making use of life hacks, organizing your schedule, or using some app or software to do so. It's thinking about any tasks that you'll be doing on a regular basis and figuring out the quickest, simplest, and least energy intensive way to get it done. It might seem alien at times, but investing in these things will pay off big time and long term for INFPs.
Okay, that is so true. And again, this is something that I'm trying to actively apply and do in my life. If you're familiar with objective personality, I think it would make sense because for me, I am more of an FITE person, and again, I have so much NE with the work that I do. And I'm trying to apply this, and I'm really owing this TE to my TE, Dom, auxiliary, parent, and friends that I've surrounded myself with growing up and up until today. One of the things that you can apply is create a system that works for you, but allow space for you to be flexible around it. What do I mean by this? I made a video about how to overcome procrastination as an INFP. Go check that out. But I have tools like Notion, and I make my simple to-do list on a day-to-day. Just write down 2 to 3 tasks that you're willing to do and accomplish within that day that's non-negotiable but also is not super strict within the deadline. Try to apply those and it will change your life. And again, something that I've actually learned from Jordan Peterson's book is to make your bed. I actually learned this from my dad more than JP, but it's just so funny how it's all connected somehow. But making your bed, something as simple as making your bed will change your life because one small act of of discipline or consistency will navigate will influence and motivate you to be more organized in other areas of your life. And again, I'm super chaotic, I'm super messy, I'm all over the place for the most part of my life, but realizing the value of TE when I enter grip mode. Why should I just enter grip mode for me to use TE? No, use it now. Use it for as much as you can, and you're able to, even if you suck at it, because eventually you will develop that function and you will become better in organizing and systematizing your work in your environment. So approve. Okay, for his sixth
Number
point.
6. Uniqueness makes you stand out, but similarity allows you to connect. There is a beauty, and more importantly, a benefit, to simply being like everyone else at times. It's a big part of belonging and connection. Sometimes, it's essential to focus on what makes you, you. Other times, it's important to focus on what makes us, us. That sounded better in my head, but you get the idea. If you're too much of an individual, then it will be hard to find that connection and kinship. Luckily, INFPs are great when it comes to empathy, so realizing that we are all in the same shaky, proverbial boat won't be difficult for them. In the same way that the mainstream popularity of a thing can make it off-putting to get into, kind of like you're being too generic by engaging in it, sometimes INFPs can psych themselves out of simply going along with the group or the crowd. To do it mindlessly is always bad, but to intentionally avoid it brings problems too, so find a healthy balance.
Okay, this is something I tweeted a few weeks ago or a few days ago, I don't even remember, but what I said is this: a truly evolved FE user will become more critical of FE and appreciate the value of FI, while an evolved FI user will see the role of FE and also learn from it. So at their peak, both will learn and admire each other instead of being irked by it. And what I mean by this is that we live in a society and we are part of that society. Sometimes unnecessarily going against the crowd, the grain, the current is doing you a disservice to humanity, because values, your uniqueness, standing out and not learning how to get along is not going to help you in your life. Sometimes it's also important to learn how to connect with other people, to learn how to function in. It's not gonna kill you to just get along with others, right? And I don't mean it in that INFPs are rebellious all the time. It's just that sometimes you do things just for the sake of rebelling. Again, me. So, this is something that we need to practice, because you need connections, you need to foster connections, and you don't, man is an island, right? As cliche as it sounds. You need other people, and we need other people to survive as well. So it's okay to be unique and to be an individualist at the core of it all, but you have to learn how to operate in a society because you're a part of it. So yes, that's I think it's going to be tied into the seventh rule. So I'm curious to learn more about it.
Number 7. Values without compromise are meaningless. This is a pretty simple idea, but it was expressed very poetically in the film Lincoln, and I'll read that quote out here in a bit. In this scene from the film, Lincoln is talking to Thaddeus Stevens and requesting that he be less radical so he doesn't scare off people on the other side of the political divide, worrying that his exceptionally moral stance against slavery was so radical that it could actually undermine getting progress towards it. Essentially, this is a pragmatist, Lincoln, talking to an idealist, Stevens. Although these concepts are represented in separate characters here, as we know, this conflict happens just as much between different parts of ourselves. A compass, I learned when I was surveying. It'll point you true north from where you're standing, but it's got no advice about the swamps and deserts and chasms that you'll encounter along the way. If in pursuit of your destination, you plunge ahead, heedless of obstacles, and achieve nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north? Values and principles are like our true north. They represent who we'd like to be, who we ought to be, but rarely who we actually are. At some point on the road, if you want the road to lead somewhere worthwhile, you need to compromise.
I really love this rule. Values without compromise is meaningless, and this is something that I struggle with and am continually learning as an idealist myself. Being fiercely independent and fiercely believing in something, in a cause, and being uncompromising and pragmatic is good, but it will prevent you from persuading other people to understand where you're coming from when you're just too caught up in trying to go against everyone else and being so, no, I'm not gonna do this, I'm not gonna do that, this is not right, this is not good, blah 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 blah, unless it's severely wrong. But if it's just as simple as making adjusting to the situation that will cater to the majority for the good of other people, or if it's not gonna kill you, then why should you just not, right? It will simply put off others if you're constantly acting in the way that you do. And that's why there's a lot of misconception about FI and FE users, and INFPs coming across as apathetic. He mentioned that we're empathic, but a lot of INFPs also come across as apathetic. Like, don't give a fuck. Like, don't want to do this. Don't want to, like, whatever. But sometimes, we all have to learn how to get along and to humble ourselves and know when to step down and when to push back a little bit. As the quote suggests, what's the point of knowing what's right and what might be good, and that you being right, even if you're right, if it prevents you from getting along with other people and getting other people to side with you or to understand your point of view? It's less about reaction, but learning actually how to respond and knowing when to say no and when to be okay not saying no to certain things. So, okay, that's my point.
Number 8. Avoid perfectionism. Like the last point, in terms of the underlying idea, but is applied specifically to the things you're working on. People will say that creating something perfect is impossible. I'm not sure that I agree with that. Sometimes something just feels right, and you can't personally find fault with it. But it's simply not a sustainable thing to aim for, and can result in a lot of devaluing your own work and overly harsh self-criticism, neither of which are healthy or helpful.
Okay, going back to what he said about perfectionism, I always tell myself, other perceivers, my clients, my students, my friends, perfectionism is a form of procrastination. So it's better to get things done and improve along the way than waste so much time trying to perfect the thing in your mind and not actually doing the thing. You end up doing nothing. And I can say this myself because I stopped doing YouTube for like a year because I had something in my mind and I wanted to do it certain way. I ended up not making a video for a year. And I'm like, now I'm just, you know what, just shoot the video. Just make the post, just make the meme, make the content and put it out there and don't overthink it so much. Avoid perfectionism.
Number 9. Follow your aesthetic inclinations. This is very much something that people can learn from INFPs. They have an intuitive pull towards certain looks, vibes, aesthetics, and this individual sensibility is very subtle and well developed. It can pop up in many areas, from the way they speak, both verbally and in text form, the way they dress, their taste in general, the way they design their homes. It can be really small stuff, and often is. Little ways in which this unique taste pops up. I'll use a Tolkien quote to finish this point. I have always been seeking things of a certain tone and air, and not simple knowledge.
You know, this is actually nice. You know, it's a good reminder for me because I'm actually building Typify and also I have MBTI time. I'm having a hard time deciding what kind of aesthetic I'm gonna go for because I'm torn between going what looks cool and what looks nice these days and what people might like versus what I actually like. So my friend, my other INFP artist friend, just told me, you know, just go with what you want. If it's not you, then why make it? I'm like, you're right. So just do what you want. Go with what you really are. To stay true to yourself, as most people would say, right? Okay, number 10.
Number 10. Don't always assume intent. INFPs, depending on their life experience, can sometimes see too much pain and hardship in the world to the point where it burdens them. Similarly, people's capacity for evil actions can feel equally burdening to them. But people are often malicious, more out of ignorance than intentionality. Unpleasantness is born more out of mistakes than malevolence, although the latter is of course still out there in abundance in the world. So, to avoid any potential falls into being misanthropic, it's good to bear this one in mind.
Okay, this is a good reminder again for all INFPs, including myself. Sometimes our fears are mere projections of our trauma, our past experiences, and other struggles. So, as much as we know how people operate, what their intentions are, why they're acting the way that they do, a lot of the times we have to learn how to distinguish what intuition is, what overthinking is, and what anxiety is, and what trauma is. Sometimes we're wrong. We have, in the same way that I would say to NI DOMs, like sometimes you can be wrong. It's the same for FI DOMs. You can be wrong. You can't 110% be correct about everyone and everything, and you have to be open to that. You don't assume what people think or what people feel unless there's like so much evidence about it. And be more discerning is the point.
Number 11. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to stop helping them. Sometimes, letting someone feel the consequences of their failures and mistakes will help them much more than shielding them from those things. In other words, sometimes people need tough love, so it's something that INFPs should make use of when the situation requires it.
Okay, this is an important rule because a lot of INFPs are too understanding and too accepting and too forgiving to a fault, and you become in a abusive or compromised situation. There's a quote by Paulo Coelho that says, "People never learn anything by being told. They have to find out for themselves." And this is something that I try to uphold in my life as well. And when I coach other people and remind them, I never really tell them exactly what to do. Very rarely, I just tell them what I think will happen, the consequences of the actions, and what will happen, the byproduct of this, if they proceed with their decision or with this way of thinking. And I let life unfold it on its own. Usually, I end up being right, but I've come to learn that people don't like taking advice or being told what to do. Even if they ask for it, they usually don't listen to you, so it's okay. You have to let them learn and see for yourself so that next time they will learn how to listen, unless they're stubborn. But very often, yes, you have to let them make their mistakes. You can't always expect people to listen to you, even if you think you're right. And that's part of the learning process, learning and experiencing the mistake itself.
Number 12. Embrace the power of the present moment. A simple one to finish off on. Fantasyland is a glorious place, a useful place, in fact. But as an intuitive, and in some ways as an introvert, learning to be grounded in the here and now will be the antidote to many worries and anxieties you'll experience in life.
It's a great ending rule. Embrace the present. Don't get caught up in your fantasy and your la la land. It's nice to have that. It's nice to daydream. But we live in the real world. We want to escape from reality, but it's not something that we can. And we can get caught up thinking and overthinking, worrying about the future that hasn't happened yet, that you get paralyzed by the present. So it's best to just focus on the present and do what you can now. I really like the video, and I hope I'll make another set of 12 rules for INFPs. We'll see. But if you want to get typed by me, if you want to learn more about INFPs or want to get coaching, check out the clip on the next part. I offer in-depth type assessments and I coach other people. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, turn on your notification bell, and thank you for watching. Bye! Follow me on my socials at MBTI Time on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you're not sure if you're an INFP, INFJ, ENFP, INTJ, or any other type, book a typing session with me by visiting www.mbtitime.com. Links in the descriptions down below.